Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is me, Belanger. Up next, collision course. Let's talk about it. I call this video collision course because I believe that the Baltimore Ravens are headed for a collision. Well, with what, Belanger? Well, I'm glad you asked me. With themselves. You see, historically, the Baltimore Ravens have a run first, defensive minded, hard nosed approach to football. And I'm totally cool with that. You see, because that happens on the field. But off the field seems to be where we're headed for the collision. You see, the Baltimore Ravens have an off the field approach of wait and see, especially when it comes to offense. You see, consistently we put a solid defense on the field. That's where a lot of our capital goes to the defensive side of the ball. But we ignore, don't show interest, or really don't know what to do with building out the roster offensively, especially when it comes to perimeter talent, whether that's wide receiver or running back. Let me explain. You see, the Baltimore Ravens have dug such a hole for themselves this offseason that it's really unclear how they're going to get out of it. Now, I know some of you may be saying, well, you got to trust EDC. Why? Why would I trust EDC? And the bigger question is, why do you trust EDC? You see, you name one thing, one player, one move, one trade that has really propped up the Ravens for the present and their future. Granted, EDC traded for Roquan Smith, but then he had to max him out. Okay, so that's one player, right? But at the same time that he traded for Roquan, you already had a first round pick in Patrick Queen on the roster, right? So you're double dipping at a position that wasn't really that great of a need. Is Roquan Smith a better player than Patrick Queen? Maybe, but the difference is marginal, right? When you look at, oh, he brought in Marcus Williams. Well, what has been the return on that investment? And then you kind of max him out with a safety contract. No return on investment. And granted, he signed Justin Metabike. The return on investment, we have to wait and see. But if you listen to the players that I named, all defense, all max type contracts. But when you jump to the offensive side of the ball, what? Yeah, I get it. They signed Lamar Jackson to a max contract. They gave him a deal. But what else are you going to do with a quarterback? What else are you going to do with a quarterback who has carried this offense 5 of the 6 years he's been here? And really 6 out of the 6, because if it wasn't for him running and throwing the Baltimore Ravens into the playoffs in 2018, we wouldn't have been that good then either. We wouldn't have been a playoff team that year. So what are you supposed to do with a quarterback who runs and throws you for 6 years into the playoffs? What do you do with a quarterback who has carried this team offensively? Yes, carry is the key word. He's been, of course, their leading passer, and he's been, of course, their leading rusher. Now, let me be clear. This is not a defense of Lamar Jackson. This is not a propaganda for Lamar Jackson. In fact, this is more of an indictment that the Ravens motto of old, wait and see, is colliding with the innovation and aggressiveness that they need to operate with. Let's go deeper. You see, when it comes to the offensive side of the ball, we're depleted, less deep, less talented in a lot of major areas, right? not just out on the perimeter at wide receiver, but we're depleted up front too. You got a question mark with Ronnie Stanley, savage move by EDC to bring him into the lab, redo his deal, and basically get him off the books for next year and take a pay cut this year. Savage move. Needed to be done because he's been hurt 3 out of the last 3 years and ineffective or less effective. Let me say it that way. Okay? The left guard position has been a revolving door, and right now there's a question mark that sits there. Right? Tyler Lindenbaum, great pickup in that draft 2 years ago. Left guard is now a question mark. And then right tackle is now a question mark. Yes, I understand they just signed an offensive tackle. Yes, he has the potential to start over there, but it's still more of a question than an answer. So 3 of the 5 starting positions from last year along the offensive line, there are question marks. We have no assurity at any of those positions. Who is that on? Who is that on? That's on EDC. And here's the deal. When you pay your quarterback a max deal of $216 million, that investment in the offensive line should have already been made. Not going to be made, not will be made. It should have already been made, especially when you pay your quarterback that kind of money. But we go into last year's draft. We didn't draft any uh, upper echelon talent at left guard, right guard, or even right tackle. We picked up a couple of guys. One guy came in, he fits that broken parts motto uh, that I talk about with the Ravens. Voorhees, supposed to be super talented or whatever, but here's the real truth. He was only going to be a third or fourth round pick anyway. So how talented was he that everybody's banking on? Okay, you drafted Salah 5th round, I believe it was, maybe 6th round. I'm not even sure. But if he's drafted that low, how talented is he? Developmental projects. But this is what you do as you pay your quarterback $260 million. And so now you got 3 of the 5 starting positions with question marks. Okay? Granted, they upgraded at running back, Derrick Henry over Gus Edwards. I can get with that. Looks like they're going to let J.K. Dobbins walk. I can be okay with that. But when you have question marks versus answers at offensive line, what Derrick Henry really going to do? Right? You see, the reason why I say the Baltimore Ravens wait and see approach, bargain bin shopping, is colliding with what they need to do as far as being more innovative and aggressive. You see, that's what creates excuse me, that's what creates this type of position. That's what creates this type of position. Out of money, without an ability to sign real quality depth to step in and fill holes. See, I'm not talking about what I feel. I'm not talking about even what I think. I'm simply talking about what's proven. Can you prove that 3 of the 5 starters along the offensive line are gone? Yes. Can you prove that there's more questions at left guard, right guard, and right tackle? Yes. Can we prove that Derrick Henry was signed a couple of weeks ago, but but don't really know how he's going to operate behind a line with questions at this point? Now remember, the conversation that I'm having is at this point. Okay? And so that's on EDC. Yeah, I came out against EDC, not really against him as a person. I don't know him as a person, but when I do an assessment, I talk about the job that has been done and the return on the investment of that job. And as a fan, I think that he's left the cupboard bare in major spots. But let's not stop there. Let's not stop there. Let's go out to the wide receiver room. Right now, as I'm making this video, unless something has happened between last night and Saturday morning, because I haven't checked any news or anything like that, The Baltimore Ravens receiving core is Nelson Aguilar, Zay Flowers, Talon Wallace, and Rashad Bateman. Now, which one of them are you really celebrating? Which one of them are you really excited about? Only Zay. Now, some of you may still be excited about Rashad Bateman, but he hasn't given me anything. And if you're honest with yourself, he hasn't given you anything to be excited about. You're still waiting to see. He's 4 years in, meaning going into his fourth year. He and the quarterback have not developed any chemistry. Nelson Aguilar produced about 360 something like that yards last season. You excited about that? Talon Wallace didn't do much offensively last year. He did run us into the end zone against the Rams for a game-winning touchdown. But are you excited about what he's going to contribute offensively? Now, am I saying, excuse me, now am I saying he couldn't produce offensively? Am I saying these guys couldn't do more offensively? That's not what I'm saying at all. But if you make an assessment, you can't make an assessment in the future because you're not there yet. You have to make an assessment about what you already know. And what I know right now, the collection of these four wide receivers is a bottom five collection. I'm not knocking them. This is about the administration that continues to ignore the offense and overinvest in the defense. That's an old school mentality versus the more aggressive approach that they need to adopt. Let's go deeper. You see, with understanding in 2018, the Ravens had no clue what Lamar Jackson was going to be. And in 2019, when he threw and ran himself into the MVP, the Baltimore Ravens were 14-2, and of course we did get beat in the divisional round by the Tennessee Titans. I believe that was that year. But what you would have known by the end of that year is that you had something in Lamar Jackson. You would have known that, you know what, this guy is a franchise quarterback. That's what you would have known at that point. All of the mystery about what he could be should have been removed because MVPs are not accidents. It's a week on top of a week on top of a week performance that leads voters to say that's the guy. And what did they do after the MVP to contribute to the potential success of this offense? Not that much. Not that much. The first round pick that year was who? Patrick Queen, who they just let leave in free agency. Not that much. Then, so you come back the next year with Hollywood Brown, and I don't even remember who the receiving corps was, but was no major additions. And then we went to the playoffs and got our first victory. We lost the next round to the Buffalo Bills. And what that should have said is, okay, bam, he made it to the playoffs, got his first victory. Let's add. See, because every year the conversation has been, let's build around Lamar Jackson. But there's been no real building. You didn't go out and get any studs at running back to kind of take that pressure off him running the ball. You didn't go get any studs at wide receivers. What, in fact, the Baltimore Ravens did was continue to try and go get cheap labor. I understand that's how you build a team. The depth of a team and the future of a team is built in the draft. But here's the thing. At this point, coming out of 2020, I understand that Lamar went down with injury in 21 and 22. But coming out of 2020, this is what you would have known. In 2018, a rookie quarterback started halfway through the season, got us to the playoffs. In 2019, a second-year guy with only a half year starting won the MVP, led us to the top seed in the AFC. What you would have known in 2020, that the same guy, I think we went 11-5 that season, something like that, got us to the playoffs, got our first playoff victory. What you're seeing is a consistent progression by your quarterback. But the team building offensively never took a progressive route. You go into 2021, what did Lamar Jackson show? That when I'm healthy and on the field, I can lead this team to the top of the AFC. What did he show in 2022? That I can lead this team to the top of the AFC when I'm healthy and on the field. What did he show in 2023? The exact same thing. When I'm healthy and on the field, I can lead this team to the top of the AFC and then land us in the AFC Championship. But that's on the field. And then when he doesn't perform well on the field, half of Ravens Nation wants to trade him. Half of them wants him uh, um, never to have been picked. They hate him. He can't play. He's sorry. He sucks. He's not a real quarterback. But what is true, no matter what you feel about him, is that when he's healthy and on the field, the Baltimore Ravens are consistently in contention. But now let me turn my attention to this collision. You see, the Baltimore Ravens historically have not invested in wide receivers, nor have they really invested in running backs as far as, continuing upgrading that talent. Ray Rice was here for a long time and got a Super Bowl with Ray Rice. From Ray Rice to now, you know, they drafted a couple of dudes, picked up a couple of dudes in free agency, but none of them were upper echelon talent. J.K. Dobbins could have been an upper echelon when it comes to talent, but he stayed hurt. So finally, they go get Derrick Henry, and then we get excited and start screaming Super Bowl. But now, when you finally upgrade the running back talent to kind of an elite type level, now you got so many holes in the offensive line, and you still have ignored the wide receiver position when there has been guys available. I know before 2023, some guys chose not to come here. I get that. But at the same time that guys are making a decision not to come to Baltimore, including Marquise Brown didn't want to be here. But as guys are making a decision not to come to Baltimore, that doesn't mean you can't take some of that draft capital and go get a proven guy. But let's think real quickly. After the MVP, if you guys remember, I don't. Who did the Baltimore Ravens bring in 2020 to aid this offense? The reason why I'm having a hard time remembering because it was insignificant and ineffective. In 2021, I believe they brought in Sammy Watkins. Maybe I'm a year too early for Sammy Watkins. They brought in I remember bringing in Dez Bryant. I remember them bringing in Deshaun Jackson. I remember them bringing in Demarcus Robinson, who turned out to be a solid player out in Los Angeles this year. But none of those guys were going to be needle movers for this offense, especially when the rest of the talent at wide receiver was third, fourth, and fifth level wide receivers. So what am I saying really when I'm talking about the wide receivers and when I'm talking about the running backs and upgrading talent and having elite talent? What I'm saying is this. Because of the old school mentality of wait and see, bargain bin, ignoring the offense, or at least having a lackluster approach to the offense, has left this offense not in alignment, right? You see, when the running back room gets straight, the wide receivers aren't. When the wide receivers seem to get worked out a little bit, the running backs aren't. And now, the offensive line, running backs, and wide receivers have more questions than answers. You see, it's because we've had this lackluster, slow to get it done approach to offense that has left vacancies at important positions. You see, this season, you grabbed Derrick Henry. Good job. But now look outside at the wide receiver position. What are we going to do out there? What are we going to do out there at wide receiver? Ain't no talent on the board. Meaning elite talent. There is talent. These guys are talented. They're NFL players. But there's no number one talent. There's no number two talent out there on the board left. And so we're less talented at wide receiver today than we were 2 months ago. We're less talented at offensive line today than we were 2 months ago. So see how we're never in alignment? And it's because we continue to sit back with our arms crossed and wait to see. You see, at some point, we have to be willing to at least go shop at Walmart at regular prices versus always Goodwill shopping in the bargain bin. Although Walmart is not an elite level of shopping, you can still get everything you need there. And the Baltimore Ravens right now lack everything that they need. Let me wrap up right here because this video is about 20 minutes in. I'm going to catch you guys in part 2. I'm out.